Three of the big public January 6th Select Committee hearings have occurred. And one of the big questions people are asking amidst all of this is there any chance Trump will be held legally responsible for the actions he took, namely his attempt to overturn a free and fair election and keep himself in power? I covered the story that we're about to talk about on my own show. You can find it by just searching Luke Beasley on YouTube, or if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to the podcast, it will be in the description. So you can just click a link, it'll take you there. Or you can just, like I said, search my name, Luke Beasley, on YouTube. And then David likely also covered this when it came out, but I thought it'd be really interesting to look at in the context of these hearings and all the revelations that have come out to take another look at this. So, quote, a former federal prosecutor who served for more than 24 years in the District of Columbia's U.S. Attorney's Office says Donald Trump could be arrested or indicted on just the evidence included in Monday's bombshell legal ruling by U.S. District Court Judge David O. Carter. So now it describes that legal ruling. Judge Carter's findings by a preponderance of the evidence, which says more likely than not that Trump committed felony offenses, is a higher evidentiary standard than the one needed to arrest and indict Trump for his crimes, which requires only probable cause. Judge Carter on Monday wrote, based on the evidence, the court finds it's more likely than not that President Trump corruptly attempted to obstruct the joint session of Congress on January 6, 2021. In response, legal experts are calling his ruling striking, massive, monumental, and historic. So this was a ruling about John Eastman, whether or not he had to turn over documents to the January 6th committee. But as you saw in there, this judge is saying it's likely there's enough evidence to indict Trump on criminal charges. That's insane. But obviously the big question is it likely? Okay, we can talk about, wow, he should be, but is this actually something that's going to happen? And at this point, I think David Pakman's assessment that we probably shouldn't be expecting to see Trump do the perp walk is still correct. Unfortunately, in the country we live in, powerful people are rarely held accountable to this extent. And actually, there's some other reasons for why Merrick Garland might be timid. And they're legitimate reasons. I don't think they're enough for him not to go through with it. But I read this op-ed by the New York Times that made a case for why it wouldn't be so crazy for Merrick Garland to be really, soft and timid on this particular issue. And while I think it's wrong in its assessment, like regardless of the backlash, regardless of the political claims that will be made, we should follow rule of law. If Trump committed crimes, he needs to be held criminally responsible. But I do understand how scary and wild it is to think about the aftermath of something like this. If Trump was indicted, the riots, the insane mayhem that would happen, I mean, that is something to be feared for sure. But that can't scare us away from doing what is right, which is holding Trump accountable if he committed crimes, of course. I'm not a legal expert. I would want the legal experts, of course, to analyze and see not just what Trump did, but compared to the law, how did he clearly break it? And if he did, he needs to be held responsible. It's also really horrible to think about the potential where, the potential world where Trump is unsuccessfully prosecuted, and for the rest of time, he's just so bolstered in his claims that this is also political, and he's been correct the whole time that this was all witch hunt. Don't like thinking about that hypothetical. So I think behind the scenes, Merrick Garland needs to make a really strong case, or see if he can make, based on the evidence, a really strong case. And if he can't, don't pursue it. But if there is a clear laws he violated, actions he took, evidence to prove it, then he needs to go through with it. Maybe he, appoints a special prosecutor to do that process. But beforehand, he needs to see if there's such clear, hard evidence that this would be an undeniable case to prove. And you honestly wish that we would be in a country where people could look at this evidence and look at the actions that Trump took and change their mind. Like all of these people on the right. I wish they would just watch the January 6th hearings with an open mind and not think that this is all fake news, because a lot of this is so clear what Trump did. And if they believed he did what he did, you would hope they would no longer want to support him. I don't know, maybe they're also just not for democracy, but hopefully you believe the only reason that they support this anti-democratic behavior is because they think it's saving the democracy because it was stolen from Trump, right? Just to kind of close, it is interesting. A majority of Americans do support indicting Trump, actually, but it's 54%, so it's not like the whole country or anything. The survey found that 54% of respondents backed the idea of the Department of Justice indicting the former president over the Capitol riot, compared to 37% who oppose the suggestion. Obviously, and I'll say this many times, it needs to come down to the evidence. Can the DOJ make an undeniable case that Trump violated certain laws? Here they are, and here's the evidence of those violations. And if they can, then he should absolutely be prosecuted. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I'm super curious to hear. Likely, unlikely, give me your assessment definitely in the comments. Thank you so much to the Dave Hackman Show for having me guest host today. You can check out my channel if you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast just by going to the description and clicking the link. It'll take you to my channel. Or if you're coming from another place, just search Luke Beasley on YouTube or Luke Beasley on any podcast listening platform, and you should be able to find my show. Be well, everybody.